Hello, my squids. Prize-winning squid here. If this is your first time, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back to the Calamari Calamity. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you get the notifications for any time I upload. So I had a friend ask me how I'm able to stay so motivated while making art, or just my creativity in general, especially with everything that's happening in the world, and more specifically the art community today. From job loss, which, big caveat, I don't work full-time as an artist. It's a dream of mine, but I feel I'm intermediate at best, not yet professional. So I'm working towards it, but I'm not suffering from job loss, but it is something that the art community has been suffering from. And then there's the ever-changing tools, which Procreate Dreams just launched, and I don't know what kind of impact it's going to have on animation, but it's a good idea, and it's a good foothold. And then especially the elephant that's in the room, which is AI, and I'd hesitate to call it art, but AI art. I thought it'd be nice to talk about motivation and art blocks and how you can overcome some of your own issues with some relatively easy changes, and how you approach your art and your relationship with art. Now, before I get too far ahead of myself, the speed paints you're watching are going to be Purah from The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate 3. I've done both of these in a more cel-shaded style than some of my older pieces, and I've been really gravitating towards that a lot lately, so I hope you enjoy. And just to let you know, you're going to be seeing more speed paints and videos like this in the future. So motivation. It feels so elusive to so many artists, and the reality is that with so much distracting us and taking our attentions away from the goal of creation, who can honestly blame you? It's really easy to blame TikTok videos and constantly scrolling, or finding a good thread on Twitter, which I'm not calling it that other name, so Twitter will have to suffice. But both of those things can lead you down a rabbit hole. And honestly, when it comes to so much pressure, both externally and internally, it's really, really hard to stay motivated all the time. There's the old byline that a habit takes roughly 30 days to form, but it takes a single day to lose it. And that's truer now than it's ever been. Also doesn't help that things like work or school take up the majority of your time, and then your commute can feel just as long. So by the time you get home, the idea of sitting in front of another screen and working on something just feels insurmountable. Now, if you follow me on my socials, you'll notice I'm always posting art. My friend wanted to know how it seemed like I was always working on something, day in and out, and how I could stay motivated even after 9 hours of work every day, and how I do it years later without burnout. The truth is, I've just always loved creating, even at my lowest points or my most painful days. I have a built-in motivation because I love the journey of creating. But that doesn't mean there haven't been stretches of time where I didn't want to pick up my tools and toss them in the trash. In those moments, there's a few things I do that help me keep going. I didn't realize that things like art block and writer's block existed because some of the things I do have completely prevented them from ever happening. I realized that some of these are second nature for me. So things I've done since I was a kid to help me write stories, draw pictures, or carve out another slice of creativity might not seem natural to another person. But maybe I can tell you some things that I do, and it can help you too. I want to start with the ones you can do to help break your blocks. There's a video by the YouTuber Struthless, which, apologies if I butchered that name, but it's from around 3 years ago as I'm recording this, so I think you need to watch it. I'll link it in the description down below. But really, I'll paraphrase what he said in the video, and while I don't use this advice 100% myself, I've been doing something similar to it for as long as I've been creating. This is honestly useful with writing, making music, drawing, knitting, crocheting, whatever. You can use this everywhere. To paraphrase, stop thinking about what you want to create and create it. I got it, easier said than done, yeah. Let's narrow it down though. So find a single subject and draw that every day, whether it's say a basketball or a original character, whatever it might be. Draw it every single day. It takes out the need of finding something to draw for inspiration. The subject's already there. If you're having a block on how to draw them, we'll start simple and with a simple pose and draw that pose every day until you're like, okay, I want to draw them like X, Y, and Z now. Eventually, you'll find not only that you're building excitement to draw, but also figuring out ways to draw dynamically. Thinking about it, I sometimes draw my characters for my projects using the same method. So, like I said, I don't 100% use this, but I do use it here and there. My primary method, however, is different but similar. When I was writing all the time, which I'll get into that at some point later down the line, it's relevant to my comics, I would take 2 or 3 words and build a short story around them. The words, for instance, could be snow globe, earthquakes, family. And I would write a short story, so we're saying no more than 1,500 to 3,000 words. The plot would be using those words in some type of way. It forced me to look at the words and come up with something short, sweet, and to the point. I'd do this for a week before I pulled another set of words out and start the exercise again. The point wasn't to craft the most brilliant story I'd ever written, but to write for the sake of writing. I got into the habit of writing just because not writing that day felt off. Some of those stories I still have saved, and I might even turn them into a short comic one day. Others honestly are lost to time, but my creative juices never stopped flowing. You can think of it as a NaNoWriMo in extremely small chunks. All writing, no editing. Today, I employ something sort of like that to help when I'm trolling around for something in a sketch. So, we have so many ways to get inspiration today that sometimes we might just be over-inspired. About a year or so ago, I decided that when I was looking for something to draw, I would start with a color or pose. For colors, it was easy. I would go to Adobe, Color, or Pinterest and hit the Explore tab. Gave myself 10 seconds to scroll until something popped out at me, at which point I had to stop scrolling and select something on that page regardless of whether I loved it or didn't. It forced me to play around with colors I would have never selected, which honestly opened a reservoir of ideas. It also helped in color studies since I was seeing color combinations I wouldn't have thought about, making me think of color as a living part of the drawing itself and admittedly the most important. The relationship between colors can fill in the gaps that a drawn line can't achieve. Talk about resetting my way of thinking about art. The second way is pose shopping. It's the same process, but I use Pinterest alone for this one. I simply scroll for around 10 seconds or so, and after 10 seconds, if something hasn't already caught my eye, I have to pick from whatever's on the screen. I sketch for at least 10 minutes before I decide whether I want to continue with it or begin pose shopping again. If I decide to pose shop, we're back to the 10-second, 10-minute setup. This has several positive effects. First, I'm actually creating artwork that I may later down the line want to finish. And second, it's forcing me to do. In that Struthless video, there was a line he said that thinking about stuff is not doing stuff. And this is immensely important to creating. We all need time to think and decompress and allow our brains a chance to unravel the day, but thinking about what you want to draw isn't actually drawing. Too much thinking leads to nothing actually being drawn. The practice of pose shopping can combat this, since you'll have a reference, and honestly, the point is that eventually you'll have something you want to finish. And if you're ever stuck, you know a surefire way to get out of the rut. The truth is that motivation is a fickle mistress. And if you wait for it, you will never work on your creativity. To be honest, forget about motivation. It doesn't exist. All motivation is preparation plus consistency. No, really, think about it. When Motivation strikes, it's because you feel confident enough to finish something. And confidence comes because you've been doing, and muscle memory takes over and allows you to get the work done. It's not some nebulous idea. You're the one creating motivation. We talk about consistency and habits, but beyond a draw everyday mentality, good methods to combat art block are rarely detailed. If you create the spaces that allow you to be creative, however, you'll be able to fight any blocks that may or may not come your way. While my methods aren't for everyone, I think they're a good starting point for people who may be having a hard time really dialing down and working on their art. It can help you stay centered and focused, and once the itch to create hits you all over again, you'll be scratching for a long time. I hope this helps. Let me know if it does, or if you have methods you like to use. Thank you for listening. I have a few announcements. The first is that my first 3 pages of my Talia webcomic are now up on my Patreon. The official launch is December 31st, but patrons get to read it early. You can subscribe at patreon.com/theprizewinningsquid. I'll also be dropping a few of the custom brushes I created and use in my art, specifically my pencil sketching brush and my line art brush on my Patreon, both of which were used on these drawings today. I'd also like to thank my patrons, MB2000 Incorporated and Lonnie W. If you're not yet subscribed, please go to my Patreon and subscribe. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube, please subscribe on the YouTube as well and hit that notification bell. I appreciate you guys so much, and I hope you guys are able to stay motivated. As for this, it's the prize-winning Squid signing off. Stay moist, and I will see you next time. Here's a Squid salute. I'm out.